Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello friends, this is Vijay. Welcome to ForumIAS Hindu Daily. In our today's news discussion, we are going to discuss the topics in the slide. The first article is about the India-US fighter jet deal. Then the second one is about the clean meat. So the US FDA, they had given approval for the production of clean meat in the territory of US. So the second article have been discussing it very briefly. Then the third one, the Kokrajhar district, which is in Assam, it have been feasting upon the mushroom. So in the midday meal program, they actually imbibed the consumption of mushroom, which actually helped the women, children to improve their health, and farmers, it have been accruing more wealth. And the fourth article is about the ART regulations. So the government, it recently came up with 2023 ART regulations. The article have been discussing the several provisions with respect to the ART regulations and the related impact. Then the last article, US to return antique idols. So the Tamil Nadu government and the government of India, these two agencies, they have been taking several measures with respect to the recovery of antique idols from the foreign destinations. So in this scenario, the US, they came up with some voluntary initiative to surrender some 100 plus idols in their country to Indian government. So these are the articles we are going to discuss today. Apart from these articles, for today's discussion, I didn't handpick the MQ-9 Reaper drone because in our past discussions, we have seen the MQ-9 Reaper drone a number of times. So that's what I dropped this article. Then the China-Pakistan nuclear deal. With respect to UPSC, we don't have any significance in prelims and mains with respect to the China-Pakistan nuclear deal. So that's what I dropped those two articles from our today's discussion. Now, without any delay, let us dive into the discussion part. So, this is the first article. Why is US-India fighter jet deal important? So, before getting into the article, let us discuss about some basics of the function of jet engines. So, this is the prototype of the jet engine. This is the frontal portion, and here we are having a blades, right? These blades, they actually made up of titanium, and the tensile strength will be very high, and they will be in lightweight. Okay, so the air will be sucked in here, and we are having two compressors. One is high pressure compressor and one is low pressure compressor. Initially, the air will get compressed by the low pressure compressor. Then it will be moved into the high pressure compressor region. So here also we are having multiple blades. These blades, it will aid in the compression of air. So after receiving in the combustion chamber, here we will be keeping multiple nostrils. Okay, multiple nostrils will be there from upside and downside, and the igniters will be present there in the combustion region. So these igniters, they will ignite the highly compressed air with the addition of the fuel. So this is what it will be happening in the combustion chamber. So we all well know, once we apply the heat means the air will get expand, right? So this is the basic principle it have been using here. So after the application of heat, the air will begin to expand. So then the highly expanded air, it will be expelled out of the combustion chamber. This is how it will provide some forward thrust. So the forward thrust will be used by the aircraft to move forward, right? So this is the basis of the jet engines. Now with respect to the article, they have been discussing about the status of the deal. With respect to the status of the deal, India is going to accrue some 80% tech transfer under the deal, and it is on the verge of completion. So both US and India, they have been waiting for the approval from the US Congress. So it is expected that the US Congress will approve the deal. Then they have been discussing about the significance of the deal. And here they have been discussing about the engine development agreement, what the India's HAL and US GE, they signed in the year of 2012. So in the year of 2012, the engine development agreement was signed, which is shortly termed as a EDA. So under the EDA, it was expected that the India will be getting 58% tech transfer, but it didn't propel India to manufacture its own jet engines in the recent times. So that's what US and India, they have been entering into the new jet engine deal. So for the LCA Tejas, right? In the past, actually, we were calculated to use the Kaveri jet engines, what it was manufactured by the DRDO. But the body to thrust ratio is very poor in the Kaveri jet engines, and it is not satisfactory to the Indian Air Force and to the DRDO also. So that's what they came up to procure the jet engines from the US. And in the US, the GE Electricals, they came up with their F404 jet engine. So right now we have procured some 404 jet engine for LCA Tejas NK1, but F414 jet engines, under the current deal, we are going to procure the F414 jet engines, right? So these jet engines, it will be getting used in the Mach 3 of the LCA Tejas. So there are several variants are there in the Tejas aircraft. So for the Mach 1, we actually procured the F404 jet engines. And for the Mk2 and Mk3, which means Mach 2 and Mach 3, we are going to use the F414 jet engines. So these F414 jet engines, it are also getting used in the popular F-18 aircraft, right? Then some of the Swedish fighter aircraft also using the F414 jet engines. So they are highly reliable and they are having a track record of 18 million flight hours, right? So it is highly reliable with respect to the operation. So why it is significant? Under the new deal, we are going to accrue some 80% tech transfer. So almost all the components, it will be getting manufactured in India and it will get assembled in India. Except a few components, it will come from the US. So this is what it had been discussed here. Then what is the status of indigenous tech development? So in the past, as I already told you, in the year of 1987, DRDO, it started to produce its own model of jet engines, and it recently came up with the Kaveri jet engines. Kaveri jet engines, it came into the operation in the year of, I think, 2004, but it didn't provide the expected body to thrust ratio, what it is required for the LCA Tejas. So we couldn't able to use the same jet engines for the LCA project. And the cost what we incurred under the development of Kaveri jet engine is 2035 crore. So even after spending 2035 crore, we didn't achieve anything fruitful under the project. So that's what the Indian government, they moved to the US for procuring the GE engines. So where will be the GE engines will be fitted? So we all well known, the squadron what we are having in Air Force is getting aging. So we are in a dire situation to replace all the aircrafts what we are having except some few. Recently, we procured some aircrafts from the Dassault Aviation. So except those, the rest of the aircrafts and all they actually need a upgradation or a replacement. For that, we are actually looking up for the jet engine manufacturers. So in that scenario, the GE Electricals, they came up with 80% tech transfer. So this is what India expected. So right now, the deal is on the verge of completion. And as I already told you, the F414 jet engines, it is also getting used in the F-18 Super Hornet and Swedish Gripen. So these two aircrafts are highly reliable and they are used for military operations worldwide, right? Then guys, with respect to the LCA Mk2, it will also get onboard oxygen generation system. So this is the first time we are going to infuse the onboard oxygen generation system. And with respect to the Mk2, so after infusing the new engine, the payload also will be expanded and it will be having a capability to carry some 6,500 kgs compared to the previous 3,500 kgs. So these are the few things you need to know. Then for the Mk3, India is having a plan to produce some 107K Newton thrust jet engines. For that also, the GE is the front runner. So for that project, the Rolls-Royce from UK and some French jet engine maker are also in a race. But with the conclusion of the US-India fighter jet deal, the GE Electricals, they would acquire the front runner spot with respect to the new deal. So this is what we need to know. Now let us discuss about the significance of the jet engine deal. The first one, manufacturing engines for the combat aircraft requires advanced technology and metallurgy, which only US, Russia, UK, France alone having. So the expertise with respect to the jet engines is rests with only 4 countries, US, Russia, UK and France. India doesn't have any expertise with respect to the production of the jet engines. So the conclusion of the deal, it will provide the tech transfer between US and India, right? So in the future, it is expected that India will also join the club. Right now, we are having expertise to produce the cryogenic engine for the spacecraft, but we don't have any expertise with respect to the manufacturing of jet engines. So the conclusion of the deal is very important for the production of jet engine in India itself. Then the second one, the agreement for the transfer of technology was discussed in the talks between India's Defense Minister and the US Secretary of Defense earlier in June 2023, and was a key highlight of India's National Security Advisors meeting with his US counterpart when the US-India ICET was operationalized, right? So under the ICET, both the US and India, they are looking up to develop some critical technologies or the disruptive technologies which are requiring for the fifth generation world, right? So under the ICET, the transfer of technology from US is expected for the jet engines. Then third point, despite the development of 9 full prototype engines and 4 core engines and extensive testing, the engine did not meet the requirements for fighter aircraft, making this deal crucial for its defense capabilities. This is what we already discussed. So since 1987, the DRDO, they had tested several engine prototypes and they came up with 4 core engines. Among them, the Kaveri is very popular. So it was expected that the Kaveri would be the heart of the LCA Tejas, but it was not so because of the body thrust ratio is very poor. So the conclusion of the deal will provide India to expand its defense capabilities. Lastly, the end of technology denial regime. So in 2008, the then Prime Minister, he actually labeled the Western government, right? The Western government are not interested in the tech transfer, but they are using India as a market. So this is the term which was made by the then Prime Minister in the year of 2008. So now with the exchange of the technology, it is expected that the regime is coming to end. So this is also the significance of the deal. Now with this note, let us move on to the next article. So this is the second article. What does US approval for lab meat mean? So we need to know what is meant by lab meat, right? And we are also terming it as a clean meat. So clean meat or cultured meat. So these are the other terms for the lab meat. And recently the US government, they had given their approval for the production of lab meat in their territory. And you might have known the US FDA, they actually had given the NOC for the good meat and the upside foods. These are the two entities. They are going to manufacture the cell cultivated meat in the US territory. And it is expected that initially they will be producing the meat of chicken. In the future, it is expected that they will also produce the meat from the shrimp and tuna, which is a fish, right? So these are all the meat they are going to produce in the future. And we need to know what is meant by the clean meat, right? So how it is harvested and how it is cultured in the lab, that we should know. And here you can see, first is a sampling of the muscle tissue. Initially, we need to culture some healthy cells from the organism. So after extracting the cells, especially the stem cells, it will be kept in the Petri dish. So in the Petri dish, it will consist of the nutrient medium and it will aid the growth of the cells, and in the course of time, these cells will get multiplied. So the multiplied cells, it will be moved to the bioreactors. So in the bioreactors also, the nutrient medium will be there and the temperature and all will be optimum, which are requiring for the development of cells. So this is how the bioreactor have been functioning. So after a few days, the cells will be attained its matured growth, right? So at that time, the cells will be harvested from the bioreactor and there will be a compaction process because there will be a fiber-like structure will be there in the bioreactors, and these fiber-like structures, it will be compressed to form a regular meat. So this is what it had been given here. So the processing of muscle fibers and here the cultivated meat, which is the final product. And after certain testings, these cultivated meat, it will come to the retail stores. There, the customers or the citizens, they can procure the cultivated meat. So this is how the mechanism had been devised in US. Now let us have a look up on the article. So what is cell cultivated chicken? So as I already told you, it is an outcome of the animal tissue culture. Okay. So in the Petri dish, they actually will be adding several nutrients, fats, carbohydrates, amino acids and right temperature. So these are all the parameters which are requiring for the healthy chicken from the bioreactors. And the cell cultivated meat with respect to chicken is extremely high, because in the US since 2010 chicken is the most consumed meat product. Okay, so before 2010 it was beef, but since 2010 chicken is the most consumed product in US. And with respect to India, the poultry market is having a value of 24 billion US dollars. Okay, and it have been growing in the range of compound annual growth rate is there, right? So it is 8%. So for every year, the compound annual growth rate have been expected to be in the 8%. Therefore, by 2028, it is expected that we will be having 44 billion US dollar market value of poultry in India. So this is the potential of the clean meat with respect to India. And which forms of cell cultivated meat exist? Actually, it is expected that we can produce several variants of meat with the help of bioreactors. But so far, the US FDA, they had given the approval for the highly consumed meat, which is chicken with respect to US. So since 2010, as I already told you, chicken is the most consumed meat in US. So therefore, US FDA, they had given the approval for the production of cell cultivated chicken in US. But with respect to beef, the fat composition, right, then the texture of the fiber, everything will be playing an active role in deciding the taste of the beef. So it will be very harder to replicate in the bioreactors. So this is what it have been discussed here. And why was cell cultivated meat created? Because the research analysts, they have been stating that the poultry market, then the meat industry, they are actually contributing 14.5% of the anthropogenic emissions. So among 100 gigatons, if the country is emitting, means 14.5 gigatons it have been coming from the poultry and the respective meat industry. So to curtail the emissions, we need to go forward for the cell cultivated meat. This is what arguing by the research analyst. Then what are the challenges the cell cultivated meat have been facing? The first one is consumer acceptance. So we don't know anything about the consumer preference with respect to the cell cultivated meat. So that is the first major challenge. Then the second one, cost. Okay. So only two industries, they are going forward for the production with respect to the cell cultivated meat. The supply will be very low, the demand will be very high, therefore the cost also will be very high. So it is expected that for the next 5 years, the cost of the cell cultivated meat will be extremely high. Thirdly, the quality. The quality of the cells, what we are harvesting from the organisms. So it will play a decisive role in the output, right? Because in the bioreactor, we will be replicating the cells what we are harvested. So the quality of cells should be very high, then only the output will be extremely suitable for the consumers. Lastly, uncertainties. Right? What are the uncertainties we are having with respect to the clean meat means? It is expected that the University of California, the Professor Davis, he stated that if the cultivation medium requires highly refined growth medium means, as like what we are using in the pharma industry means, then the environmental impact of the industry will be very high. So this is what he had been explained under the document what the University of California had provided, right? So these are all the challenges are there for the clean meat. Anyway, it is expected that the propulsion of the cell cultivated meat will bring down the emission of carbon from the meat industry. With this note, let us move on to the next slide. So here is the advantages of cultured meat, right? The first one is less contamination. So generally, the conventional meat production, it will be facing enormous challenges from the E. coli bacteria and the salmonella. So in the cell cultured meat, there won't be any incidence of E. coli or salmonella. So it will be safer for the consumption. So this is the first advantage of the cultured meat. Secondly, the use of antibiotics. Generally, we are well known, the antibiotic resistance is only because of the excessive antibiotics what we are using in the meat industry. So by the infusion of the bioreactors, we can bring down the consumption of antibiotics in the meat industry. So this is the second advantage. Thirdly, the less environmental impact. So almost 14.5% of greenhouse gas emissions, it is from the meat industry. Among them, beef alone have been contributing for 41% of the emission. So it is expected that with the cell culture meat, we can bring down the greenhouse gas emission throughout the world. Lastly, no animal slaughter is necessary for the culture meat, even though a small amount of tissue is needed. So we are having several ethical concerns with respect to the conventional meat industry, right? So it will be getting eliminated with the infusion of the culture meat. So with this note, let us wind up the article here. Now let us move on to the next article. This is the third article, guys. Kokrajhar feast on mushroom for health, wealth, right? So here with respect to the Kokrajhar district, which is in the Assam region, so basically this region is locating in the tropical climate, okay? So it is having suitable temperature, moisture for the development of mushrooms. So you might have known about the Center's One Product, One District initiative, right? So under the One District, One Product initiative, the Kokrajhar district was assigned with the cultivation of mushroom. So the people who had cultivated the airy silk, they actually moved to the cultivation of mushrooms. But the cultivated mushroom need to find the market, right? So the government agencies, they actually procured the mushroom, what it was cultivated by the farmers. They actually supplied the same mushroom to the schools which are locating in the region. In the schools, these mushrooms were added in the diet pattern of the students. Recently, the reports came. It have been hugely surprising because you can see that the underweight, the number of underweight, wasted and anemic children in the Kokrajhar district, it had been reduced by 56%, 55% and 76% between 2021 to 2023. So within 2 years, this district had reduced the burden of underweight, wasted and anemic children, and it actually have been propelling the health of the children who are studying in the schools in the Kokrajhar district region. Also, the maternal mortality rate. The maternal mortality rate in the district is also reduced by 72.37%. The Assam's average maternal mortality rate is 205 per lakh. Okay, so 205 per lakh is the maternal mortality rate of the Assam. But with respect to the Kokrajhar district, it is only 89.79 per lakh. Okay, so you can see the development of what the district had achieved under the One District, One Product initiative. So this is what it had been discussed here. So here in the article, they are also discussing about the contribution of the Bodoland Territorial Council. They actually launched the mushroom mission in the year of 2021 under the Center's One District, One Product initiative. So according to that, the farmers who actually move towards the cultivation of mushroom from the airy silk production. So this cultivation, it actually have been fetching huge profits for the farmers. So this is a community-led development. Each and every segment of the community have been getting the benefits from this initiative, right? So this is the model. We can use it in the answer as an example. So that's what I had handpicked this article for you. Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the fourth article, guys. Tamil Nadu Idol Wing steps up efforts to retrieve 16 idols from the US. Both the government of India and the Tamil Nadu government, they actually collaborated together to retrieve 16 idols from the US. Moreover, US also came forward to surrender 100 idols from its custody, right? And most of the idols, what they are going to retrieve, belong to the Cholan era. So these are all the temples which belongs to the Chola era. So I would advise no need to dive deep into the topics, especially with respect to the idols. No need to search too much because 100 plus idols it is about to come to India. So it will be very tough for you. So I would advise don't do that research, right? And here with respect to this issue, we need to know what are the issues and what are the measures we are taking. And here is the issue. The first one is illicit trade. So the rackets, the smuggling rackets is very prominent with respect to India, and there are several factors are there. The first one is India's rich cultural heritage, then the bureaucratic apathy, then the poor implementation of Antiquities protection law. So these three factors, it actually have been escalating the smuggling of idols from India to the foreign destinations. Moreover, in abroad market, the market value for the smuggled idols are very high. So this is one of the prominent reason for the smuggling of idols in India. Secondly, lack of database. There is a lack of an integrated database of existing and stolen artifacts. National Mission on Monuments, they actually have been shortlisting the number of artifacts what we are having, right? So, but they couldn't have any integrated database. So there comes the issue. Thirdly, poor conservation. Poor restoration and conservation of antiquities in museums is a major concern. Most of the antiques and art treasures need immediate conservation. In most cases, the objects reserved for conservation are already damaged and beyond restoration. So, in India, the government hadn't been allocating the resources for the conservation of antiquities. This is also one of the cause of concern. And most of the rackets who are operating in India, they are actually targeting the poorly conserved resources, especially with respect to the antiquities. And they are handpicking those antiquities and they are smuggling it to the abroad destinations. So these are all the issues we are facing with respect to the antiquities in India. Then what are the measures we have taken so far? The first one is Antiquities and Art Treasuries Act of 1972. So under this act, there were several provisions were there. So this act, it provides for the compulsory registration of notified categories of antiquities. So the trading of antiquities itself is not a sin, right? So it is legally available under the act, but we need to get the approval from the central government. That is the main issue. So the central government is having an agency to provide the compulsory registration certificate for each and every antiquities that can be traded, right? Secondly, regulating the export trade in antiquities and art treasuries. So the act, it has been regulating the export trade in antiquities and art treasuries. The section 3 of the act, it prohibits export of antiquity by anyone other than the center or its agencies. So the central government is having a nodal body. They will be given the approval for the people who can involve in an antiquity trade. So apart from that, no one is permitted to enter the antiquities trade. Thirdly, prevention of smuggling of and fraudulent dealings in antiques. So this is the prime objective of the Act, Antiquities and Art Treasuries Act of 1972. Then lastly, compulsory occasion of antiquities and art treasuries for prevention in public places. So the government is having enormous power to acquire the antiquities and art treasuries which were stolen from the public custody, right? Secondly, to facilitate custom authorities in allowing non-antiquities to be exported, ASI has established an expert advisory committee to issue non-antiquity certificates. Certain materials, it will be possessing certain traits which is similar to the antiquity, right? So it can be delineated by issuing the certificate from the expert advisory committee. So this is what the second point have been stating. Thirdly, all important international exit points for sea and air transportation has been provided with ASI officers to help and assist the custom authorities to distinguish between the antiques and non-antiques. So based upon the certificate what provided by the expert advisory committee, the ASI officers in each and every nodal point, they will be bifurcating the antiques and non-antiques. Then fourthly, antique cell has been opened in CBI for investigation into cases of thefts and losses of antiques. So a dedicated antique cell has been operating under the CBI. Then we are having National Mission on Monuments and Antiquities. It aims to prepare a national register on antiquities by documenting antiquities from different sources in a union format. So they are the one who are making the integrated registry for the antiquities. So till 2016, they actually shortlisted some 14 lakh antiquities in India. Okay. So this is what the National Mission on Monuments and Antiquities had did. Lastly, Civil Society Initiative. India Pride Project is a civil society initiative. It is a volunteer network spread across the globe that tracks and brings back India's stolen antiquities and art treasuries. So with the help of the India Pride Project only, the Tamil Nadu government, they are trying to recover the stolen idols from the US. Okay. So now with this note, let us move on to the next article. This is the last article, guys. New ART regulations push up cost of treatment, limit consumption opportunities. Okay. So this is the last article, and we all well know what is meant by ART, right? The couples who couldn't able to produce their offspring under the natural process, they will be opting the ART. In the ART, there will be a manipulation of oocyte or sperm. So oocyte is a female gamete, sperm is a male gamete. So the regulation, it have been imposing several restrictions upon the patients and the donors. Patients means the concerned couples, right? So the oocyte donor, which means female, she should be married. That's a first restriction. Apart from that, she should be having a children above 3 years of age. Okay. So these are the mandatory provisions. It had been included in the ART Regulations Act 2023. So the child age should be above 3 years. Also, she can donate oocyte only once in her lifetime. In that, the oocytes, the number of oocytes, what it can be retrieved from the body should not be above 7. So this is also notified in the new regulations. Then the parties who are seeking the ART services, they need to provide insurance coverage to the donors. This is also included in the new provisions. Then the clinic is prohibited from offering to provide a child of predetermined sex, right? So the health ministry, they have been stating that these provisions will ensure the safety of donors. But medical practitioners, they have been stating that it actually will be escalating the cost of the ART technology because the donors will be reduced. Each and every donor, only once they can donate their gametes, right? Therefore, the number of donors available in the market will be reduced and there will be a supply-demand crunch. Therefore, it will be escalating the cost. So this is what the medical practitioners have been stating. We need to wait and watch. In the upcoming days, I am expecting we will be receiving more articles upon the ART regulations. There we will discuss about it in a much elaborate way. Okay. Now let us dive into the question part. This is the first question, guys. Which one of the following is a part of Congo Basin? So in Congo Basin, there are 5 countries are there. So all these 5 countries have been draining by the Congo River. So the first one is Cameroon. So Cameroon is here. Then we are having Democratic Republic of Congo. So Democratic Republic of Congo. Then Republic of Congo is there. Then Gabon is there. Then Guinea. So these are all the 5 countries which are locating in the Congo Basin. So Nigeria, South Sudan, Uganda, these all are not a part of Congo Basin, right? So the answer option A is the right one for the question number 1. Then this is the second question. Invasive species specialist group that develops a global invasive species database belongs to which one of the following organizations, right? So this is a factual question. So the right answer is IUCN. So IUCN, they are actually developed a database with respect to the global invasive species. With respect to India, the proposed Juliflora is there in the global invasive species list, which belongs to the IUCN. Okay. So this is the factual question. Answer option A is the right one for the question number 2. And this is the third question, guys. Consider the investments in the following assets, right? So here they are given 4 options: the brand recognition, inventory, intellectual property, and mailing list of clients. Generally, there are 2 variants are there. One is tangible assets and another one is intangible assets. Tangible assets means the property, the machineries, the building, what the industry is owning, which are termed as a tangible assets. Intangible assets means which are not visible to the eyes, but it will be considered as an asset. Okay. So the first one is brand value. So for each and every brand, there is some value, right? The Apple is the highly valued product in India. Then Google is there. So these are with respect to the brand recognition. Then inventory. Inventory is a physical asset. So which will be coming under the tangible asset. So we can't consider inventory as an intangible investment. Then we can strike it off. Then intellectual property. Intellectual property means the innovations what the industry is owning. So that will be termed as an intellectual property, right? So this is also intangible. Then the mailing list of clients. So with respect to certain document I have read in the past, for 100 contacts in the mail list, some 2% buyers will be there. For it will be applicable for each and every product. So this is the potential intangible investment, right? So the 4th option is also right. So 1, 3, 4 are right. So only 3 is the right answer for the question number 3. Now we are arriving at the end of the discussion. Thank you for your patience. Let me catch you in another discussion tomorrow, and press the like button, subscribe to the ForumIAS. Bye.